Hawksmoor is not only famous for their dry-aged steaks, they have also garnered a wealth of praise for their burger, and it's an epic burger indeed. In fact, at Hawksmoor's London restaurants, their burger is currently ranked as the 7th best in the world. Without question, I just had to give Hawksmoor's massive burger a try.
It's an absolutely picture-perfect day today here in New York City. Right now I'm at Madison Square Park, and I just had lunch at a very notable steakhouse, but I didn't go there for steak. I went there for a burger. I am talking about Hawksmoor, which is a British steakhouse that I've gone to before and really enjoyed, but when I saw what their burger looked like, I just had to make a return visit. Basically, Hawksmoor's burger looks like a very fancy and elevated version of a McDonald's Big Mac. Considering how good Hawksmoor is when it comes to steak, I figured their burger would be pretty solid. And so far, that seems to be the consensus, as their burger has garnered a lot of hype and praise. And I absolutely love burgers, and I'm always on the hunt for the best, so I just had to try it. Plus, I was also intrigued by the restaurant's lunch special menu, which is basically a prefix menu. One can get either 1, 2, or 3 courses for a fixed price, and the prices are somewhat affordable. So I figured I would get the burger within the prefix menu and just have an enjoyable afternoon lunch. And that's exactly what I got. So with that being said, this was my experience at Hawksmoor having their epic burger.
The New York City Hawksmoor is located in the Flatiron District and opened in 2021. However, the history of the restaurant goes back much further. The now 2-decade-old steakhouse was established back in 2006 in London. It's the product of childhood friends Hugh Gott and Will Beckett, who wanted to open a restaurant that perfected the British steakhouse experience. The result was a success, as Hawksmoor brought in a countless number of customers and garnered a wealth of praise for their food. This in turn led to the restaurant's expansion, not only across London, but the UK as a whole. In addition, Hawksmoor has gone international, with a restaurant in Dublin, NYC of course, and Chicago. Later this year, a Hawksmoor will even open in Boston. Considering how much I enjoyed my first visit to Hawksmoor, I was excited, so I arrived to the establishment at 12 o'clock for my reservation. Once I was seated, I took in the space, and the restaurant was just as stunning as I remembered. Hawksmoor is housed within the United Charities building, which is designated as a National Historic Landmark. The dining room where I was seated served as the building's assembly room, and it truly was a feast for the eyes. I love the soaring high ceilings and general sense of wide open space. Hawksmoor definitely has an elegant and grand look to it, but the vibe was actually on the more casual and laid back side. In fact, the front of house staff don't even have uniforms and can dress in a way that feels most comfortable to them. Overall, between the restaurant's historic architecture and inviting atmosphere, Hawksmoor felt pretty good to me. Soon enough, I began to explore the various menus. First, I looked over the main lunch menu, which had a good selection of appetizers, sides, and of course, steaks. In fact, the lunch menu isn't too different from the dinner menu, except during the evenings more main courses seemed to be offered. For that visit, however, I was all about Hawksmoor's Express lunch menu, which is offered Monday through Saturday from 12 to 3. One can get either 1, 2, or 3 courses for a fixed price. I went with 3 dishes for $55. These days, for a New York City steakhouse, that's some decent value, especially when you consider the quality of some of the courses that are offered. For example, as a main, one can get an 8-ounce, 28-day dry-aged steak frites, which sounded good to me, but that day I was all about Hawksmoor's burger. Next, I checked out the beverage selection. Hawksmoor, of course, has a decent variety of wine, but I was keen on getting a cocktail, especially since I really enjoyed the martini I had on my last visit. Cocktails at Hawksmoor are divided into categories, with some classic creations to more modern and original drinks. I decided to order a beverage from the Sacred Six, which are cocktails that will always be on the restaurant's menu. I got the full-fat old-fashioned, which contained Old Forester bourbon, salted brown butter, and Mitcher's rye. That beverage was a delight. Old Fashions are one of my go-to cocktails, and that was a particularly fine example. It packed a punch in terms of its alcohol content, and had a nice balanced brown sugary sweetness along with a buttery richness. That Old Fashioned really hit the spot. First up, in terms of food, I went with a Steakhouse classic. I got the Hawksmoor Caesar salad, which contained Cantabrian anchovies. The dish looked promising. I'm a big fan of anchovies, and I love Caesar salads that don't shy away from utilizing those tasty little fish, so I eagerly dove right in. That was overall a pretty satisfying Caesar salad. The lettuce was nice, crisp, and fresh, but the highlight for me was of course the anchovies. They lent a pleasant saltiness, combined with the rich dressing and grated aged cheese. That Caesar provided a strong umami punch that I particularly enjoyed. Finally, there were the croutons, which had a spot-on texture and completed the dish. Overall, that salad proved to be a solid start to my lunch. Next up was the main event, the burger, and it looked epic. At Hawksmoor, the dish is called the Notorious B.E.E.F, which seems to be a nod to New York's Notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie Smalls. Over in the UK, the burger is known as the Big Matt, which seems to be the same or at least very similar to the American offering. In fact, that burger is currently ranked as the 7th best burger in the world. Visually, the burger seems to resemble a very fancy version of a McDonald's Big Mac, but in terms of what the dish consisted of, it's a hell of a lot better than what is offered at the Golden Arches. After picking up that bowling ball-sized burger, I eagerly dove in, and I wasn't disappointed. To put it frankly, that burger lived up to the hype. It was excellent. First off, let's consider the meat. Hawksmoor utilizes 2 dry-aged beef patties that were nicely griddled, resulting in a delicious crust. Now, the dry-aged flavor was there, but it did have to compete with all the other components of the burger. Still, those patties had great flavor, plus they had some weight to them. Now, they weren't so thick, which would require them being cooked to a customer's desired temperature, but they weren't delicate little smash burger patties either. I also found them to be fairly juicy and tender. In fact, the first bite I took, the burger practically rained over my plate, but that wasn't just from the meat, it was also due to the Hawksmoor special sauce. The sauce seems similar to a lot of other burger special sauces, but Hawksmoor's example felt a bit more balanced in terms of its tangy flavor and more refined. In terms of cheese, Hawksmoor utilizes what is practically the cheeseburger standard of American cheese. However, the restaurant kicks it up a notch using new school American cheese, which is a cleaner and more refined alternative to traditional American cheese. New school does away with the processed ingredients and artificial fillers typically found in American cheese, but the creation still maintains that perfect meltiness which suited Hawksmoor's burger just fine. Other components within the Notorious B.E.E.F included shredded lettuce, homemade pickles, and onions. Each of those toppings did their part in contributing to the creation's overall flavor profile, but easily the most striking aspect of that burger is the bun, in particular the bun in the middle. First off, there's no denying what that extra bun does to the burger's visual profile. It transforms what is already a great-looking burger into a dish that commands attention. But of course, that middle bun has a practical application as well, as it absorbs some of the meat juices and serves as a platform for some of the toppings. Plus, the bun on its own was fantastic. It was nice and fresh and perfectly toasted. I also loved the sesame seed flavor. In fact, there were sesame seeds not just on the top portion of the bun, but the bottom as well, which is something I rarely see. In fact, the last time I had a bun like that was at Raff's, which also serves a pretty good burger. To sum it up, the Notorious B.E.E.F was excellent, and out of 10, I would give that creation an 8.5. Besides the burger, I was also enjoying my side of the beef dripping fries, which were included with the course. Those fries hit the mark on every level. The flavor from the beef tallow really enhanced that side dish, resulting in those fries to be extremely craveable. They also had the ideal texture of a crisp exterior and a pillowy center. Paired with the fries was a cup of ketchup, which of course proved to be a nice condiment. Between my burger and fries, I was happy, but even after finishing, I still had dessert to look forward to. In terms of the express lunch menu, there were 3 dessert choices. One was the peanut butter Louis, which I actually had on my last visit and really enjoyed. There was also a blueberry and basil whipped cheesecake that sounded good, but I instead opted for the sticky toffee sundae. The dish looked fantastic and consisted of milk ice cream studded with chunks of sponge cake and a buttery toffee sauce. Plain and simple, that was an excellent sundae, and it really hit the spot, especially after that salty burger and fries. The ice cream was rich and had the perfect amount of sticky toffee pudding. I simply hate when restaurants are stingy with toppings, but that was certainly not the case with Hawksmoor's creation. Tying everything together was the sweet toffee sauce, which was a true delight. To sum it up, that was a very enjoyable ending to a great lunch. After finishing, it was time for the bill, which totaled to $86.01, but with my tip, I spent just over $102. Yeah, my cocktail definitely made that check a bit more costly, but I don't regret it. It was a fine drink and a fine meal overall.
Now that was one satisfying lunch. Once again, Hawksmoor delivered on every level. That burger was absolutely delicious. For burger fans, it is a must order. Now I'm not really surprised that I enjoyed it that much. I mean, Hawksmoor is a steakhouse and they do beef very well, so it's not that far of a stretch to imagine that they can make a great burger. Although it is interesting that here in New York City at least, a lot of the city's best burgers don't necessarily come from steakhouses, places that specialize in beef. I mean, one of my favorite burgers comes from the Brooklyn location of Emily, which is a damn pizza restaurant. Regardless of where tasty burgers come from, I love the burger I had today from Hawksmoor. That is without a doubt a must order. Plus, I enjoyed all the other food I had today from Hawksmoor. That salad was on the mark, those fries were super delicious, and that sticky toffee sundae was just a perfect ending to a great lunch. And that cocktail really hit very nicely. Overall, I think Hawksmoor is just a very reliable restaurant, whether it's for their steak, their burger, or whatever other food they have on their menu, because there's a lot of things on their menu that I would love to try in the future. To sum it up, Hawksmoor's burger lives up to the hype. It's absolutely delicious, and the restaurant as a whole is a must visit, and that is a place that I will certainly be returning to.